Well, welcome back again this week. I want to give you an illustration, very short one, of the results of inflation, which is the overissuing of paper money in relationship to goods and services, or being backed by intrinsic metals, such as the Constitution demands, gold and silver. Last week I bought the Wall Street Journal over the counter. I always buy newspapers over the counter. I don't subscribe to them. Last week this was a $2 newspaper. This morning it was a $3 newspaper. In 1 week, 50% hike in the price. Maybe that's why they're not laying anybody off at the Wall Street Journal, but they haven't hiked the price at the New York Times, so that might be why they're laying them off over there, at any rate. Looking at the newspaper accounts and other things on TV and on the internet and such, relative to the Ferguson protests, showed me a number of things that I expected to see, but I'm surprised that a lot of people can't see. And that's why I wrote a booklet on terrorism, put out a DVD on terrorism, to try to get people to recognize what is right in front of them, but don't notice. For instance, here again, it's the Wall Street Journal. Here's a fellow with a bullhorn up on a car. He's trying to whip up the crowd in Ferguson. And of course, all of us stop by somewhere, don't we, and buy a bullhorn just in case we need it sometime in the future, just to kind of have it handy. No, bullhorns show organization. Here's another one. This was, again, I think this is the Chicago Tribune. And if you look real close at this sign, and you can't hardly even see it with the naked eye when you've got the newspaper in your hand. I had to take a magnifying glass because I suspected from what I could barely make out at the bottom of this pre-printed sign was Socialist Workers. And so I went to the demonstrations around the world, around the country, and lo and behold, another photograph in London of the Ferguson demonstrations there, Socialist Workers. So when you see guys with bullhorns, when you see pre-printed signs, particularly when those signs all have the same organization on them, that shows that there is organization behind these demonstrations. Look, my experience in the early 60s, infiltrating Marxist organizations, working in tandem with one of the Seattle police intelligence squads and that kind of thing, demonstrates to me that there is no such thing as spontaneous riots. This is true for the experience of the John Birch Society. This is true from the manuals that are issued by the various communist organizations telling people how to whip up a crowd, how to get a crowd together, how to get them going, how to get them involved in violence, getting them attacking the police, so on and so forth. It really does not matter who's guilty or innocent in any of these things if someone is whipping up a crowd to be lawless, to perpetuate crime, to set cars on fire, to destroy people's homes and businesses through arson and that kind of thing. It does not matter the cause. It's wrong. Two wrongs don't make a right, do they? But in all of this is this organization. And especially when you use social networking. Somebody has to set the time, the place, etc., and the agenda for all of these events. Somebody has to do that. Somebody has to put that information out to get them there. Just in case you missed it, for instance, the Huffington Post, even in case they couldn't get enough people out, posted this article. And the article's title is, "Here's How to Find a Ferguson Protest in Your Area." And then they publish a map. Now you can't see it very well here, but they published a map of the United States and Canada to show you where they knew that these demonstrations were going to take effect. And oh, by the way, if you can't find one here, here's some more sites you can go to find out in your area if there's going to be a demonstration. So you have this organization behind this through such very liberal, and that's putting it mildly, publications such as Huffington Post to get people out, to get them into the streets. Once they get them there, then the organizers of violence, with their bullhorns and with everything else, come out and start to whip the crowd into violence. Now, we saw protests all over the United States and all over Europe. In London, like I said, the socialist workers were there. To give you an idea, the organizations that we were able to find that were involved in these demonstrations were of the more Stalinist and Trotskyite communist organizations. The Communist Party itself kind of stays behind the scenes. It organizes a great deal of this, but they kind of don't like to show exactly who they are. They leave that up to the more Stalinist and Trotskyite communists, calling themselves the Freedom Parties, Freedom Socialist Party, or the Socialist Workers, or that sort of thing, the progressive this, that, or the other. And but they're there, and they're always there, and they're always organizing. You even see it on Twitter. And by the way, Huffington even tweeted this article out to make sure that more people saw it relative to where they could go to get out in the streets and demonstrate. They had them had protests in France, in Russia, in Germany, and the media in these areas and the politicians in those areas attacked Ferguson and the police and so on and so forth. And regrettably, ladies and gentlemen, there are too many conservatives that attack the police in this regard. We are aware of the problems of nationalizing, federalizing the police. The John Birch Society has been in that mess for years, trying to prevent the nationalization of the local police. There are many things that disturb us in this regard, and we're not holding back our guns in our magazine, The New American, or anywhere else in that regard. But we do understand that the citizens of character in their communities have to get closer to their police departments to educate them as to the dangers of nationalized police, and at the same time help the police department when help is necessary from the local citizens. Just because I have a local police department, all that means is I have abrogated a little bit of my responsibility temporarily to that local police department to uphold the law. Doesn't mean I've relinquished my responsibility. I still have a responsibility to help restore law and order in a system of justice. It's the way it works. You don't put a wedge between the community and the police department. You try and bring them together. You try and get them working together. Now, interestingly enough, the most quoted individual in Europe regarding Ferguson was from the French Justice Minister, Justine Taubira, and she's a member of the European Parliament. And she tweeted very obnoxious comments about Ferguson and the police departments and that sort of thing. She is a member of the Socialist Party, and she's vice president of what's called the Radical Party of the Left. So we see that all of this revolves around these leftists. It's made to look as though it's spontaneous. It is not spontaneous, and it is particularly not spontaneous when it happens all over the country and all over the Western world. It's organized, somebody's behind it. Start noticing these things. Also, send for my video on terrorism, the booklet, that sort of business. It will open your eyes to where you will see these things for yourself in your local newspapers if you are looking for it. It'll create a paradigm shift in your brain, so to speak. It'll be right in front of you. It's right in front of you now, but you just don't see it, and you will get to see it if you do that. By the way, I promised you something about the duplicity relative to the trade treaties. This time we're running out of time. I'll make another promise that I hope I can keep next week to show you the duplicity in the Obama administration with the Chinese government on the American people in regard to these things. Until next week, we'll see you then.